Hello. Stay a while and listen.
Why hello Decker Kane, fancy seeing you here. What is this?
A Horodric cube.
Wait, this lets me combine things to make new things, right?
Yes.
Nice, that gives me an idea. I really like the palm thock of creams, but also like the smooth deep sound of Gateron Ink Blacks. What if I combine these two? What will happen?
You have quite a treasure there in that Horodric cube.
Wait, what is this? Is this a new switch? A POM ink? Holy crap! And that, my friends, is how the CJ Switches were born. I'm just kidding, they were made by Gateron like the other switches. Welcome back to the channel, this is Scott. But you know what? Regardless of who made them, I am excited. Why? Because I feel like POM Switches just had a bad rep due to the ever scratchy NK creams. But these Gateron CJs are here to turn that around. Before we dive in, making content for this crazy hobby, I've had the pleasure of trying out many different switches. Given that, I think these CJ Switches are my favorite new linears of this year. I actually like these better than even the new box inks, which in my opinion means a lot to me since I really like the new box inks.
You astound me, my friend.
Let's look into what makes the new CJ Switch so special and why I would put these above so many different switches for my own preference and use. First of all, these are blue, my favorite color. Not just any blue, a really electric blue. I know that doesn't really mean anything, but you know, if you break this down, you can start getting an idea of what the CJs are all about. You can see that the ultra blue lower housing is a new POM material. Then you have the 60-gram bottom out spring, which looks to be the same as the one used in the box ink pink, albeit a different color. The stem is a standard 4mm travel as the original ink V2, and finally the upper housing is tinted blue in the new mold shared with the new box inks. You can see here in this close-up that the upper housing has a little divider in the middle, which is indicative of the new housing mold. If you think about it, the new CJ is Gateron's own way of Frankensteining a switch. They essentially combined an ink switch with an NK cream, in theory. They made a new POM lower housing, then took the spring from inside the pink ink, the upper housing mold from the box ink, the standard stem design of the V2, or actually given the design difference, it looks like the new CJ stem may actually be a recolored Gateron Pro switch stem. What resulted is a stupid smooth switch with very tight tolerances and a sound profile that is smooth as the ink but more resonant because of POM. This housing was so tight that I couldn't even fit a thin film into this thing because it just wouldn't even close right. In addition, this thing is smoother in stock form than even an ink switch lubed. Actually, it's probably smoother stock than even the Tangy lubed. What is going on here? It's actually mind-blowing. How can the CJ be smoother stock than lubed Tangies? Is this how smooth POM really is? Before we go into deeper analysis, a quick word from our sponsor Divinikey. Divinikey is a top-notch custom keyboard and keyboard parts vendor located in sunny Los Angeles, California. Ever since I got back into this hobby, I've been extensively using components I buy from Divinikey with nothing but great experience, so I'm really excited to be collaborating with them. It's truly a well-organized operation that has great selection of many in-stock keyboard products and components. For example, I bought my CJ Switches from here, and besides that, Divinikey features one of the best selections of various different switches that are in stock and available today. In addition, they carry crucial components like TX and Sprit springs, Durock stabilizers, and Krytox loops. Also a great selection of keycaps, especially if you're looking for ePBT keycaps. They have a huge selection of ePBT. Finally, if you're in the market for something like a KBD67 Lite, it's right here in stock and everything is shipped from the US, so great shipping rates and speed as long as you're here. Honestly, a lot of the stuff you see me use on this channel is purchased from Divinikey, so I really do trust them and recommend. So check out the link below in the description and get 5% off of every purchase. To evaluate the switch, I'll be pulling out my Portico with the aluminum plate update. I'm using the Portico because with the aluminum plate, the keyboard delivers a fairly neutral platform, and also this was a keyboard I used for the previous Box Ink Blacks, so it will be a good comparison as well. For keycaps, I'll be using the EPBT Pink on Black ABS double shot caps as I have done before. So first up, let's take a listen for the switch sounds and compare that to some other linear switches in the mid to upper price range. For this, I'll be comparing the CJ against the Box Ink Blacks, the Tangerines, the TTC Gold Pinks, and two other POM variants. They are the Durock POMs and NK creams that I've broken in by using it raw for about 2 weeks straight. And yes, they do get better after a little bit of break-in. New for this video, I felt that just spamming one switch doesn't give you the best sense of the switch sound, so I'm also providing two switches alternating, so let me know if it's helpful in the comments below. So let's take a listen. Next up is the non-scientific stem wobble test. Remember, this is my opinion and my opinion only, so please take it with a grain of salt. In addition, I have noticed that switches behave differently depending on the stage of break-in and use, so your mileage also may vary. I'll be doing this test in both north and south as well as the east and west directions. Alright, the first one up is the new launch edition NK cream, so this actually has a new mold. And versus the original, the overall stem wobble has been dramatically improved. There's still a little bit of it, but it's not as bad as the original. The second one up is the TTC Gold Pink, and in the north and south direction, the TTC Gold Pinks actually have a really good control here. Next one up is the new Box Ink Blacks. A decent amount of play north and south here. I don't think the north and south direction is actually the Box Ink Black strong suit, but it's not too bad, but definitely there. The CJ, so compared to the Box Ink Blacks, it's actually much better north and south here, as you can notice. And this is actually really tight for the switch. Next up is the Tangy, also very tight north and south direction here. The two switches, the Tangy and the CJs, are actually really close to each other in this direction. Finally, the Durock POMs. Once again, the Durock POMs have such a tight tolerance here, you barely see the stem move at all. Now we're going to be moving on to the east and west direction. So east and west, the new Kale NK creams. A little bit of wobble here, but it's not too bad. It's definitely much better than the original. Next up is the TTC Gold Pink. The TTC Gold Pinks in the east and west actually have a pretty good amount of wobble. Next is the Gateron Box Ink Black. Versus the north and south, the east and west for the Box Ink Blacks are actually much tighter and much better controlled, as you can see. Next is the CJ. CJ also has a really good east and west wobble performance. It's probably slightly better than the Box Ink Blacks here, actually. Next is a Tangerine. Tangerine always had a really good control, especially in this east and west direction, and from what I can see, the Tangerine and the CJs are very close to each other in terms of stem wobble. Finally, the Durock POM, and once again in the east and west direction as well, it pretty much doesn't move. It's such a really tight switch, and it's pretty evident. Alright, so before we move on to my final thoughts and the final typing test, let me bring back my switch performance comparison chart. Remember, once again, this is my opinion and my opinion only, so please take it with a grain of salt. However, I hope that this chart will help put everything into one page and helps you make an informed decision. So as usual, there will be 5 different criteria that is evaluated, with the first one being stem wobble. As you have seen in the demonstration before, the Durock POM is always the king in this area. Then what is surprising is that the Tangerines and the new CJ are just so close to each other, but in the east and the west, the Tangies do edge out the CJs a tiny bit, so I will give that small edge to the Tangie. Pretty impressive that the CJ can almost match the Tangie's tolerance here. Next up down is the new Box Ink Black, which has really good east and west performance, but a little bit less in the north and south. The NK Cream is next with overall decent performance in both directions, and finally the TTC Gold Pink. The TTC Gold Pink is really tight north and south, but just pretty loose east and west, so it trails the pack here. Next criteria is the switch smoothness. Finally, the first time in my evaluations, the Smooth King Tangerine has been dethroned. As you have seen in the video earlier, the CJs are just stupid smooth, and even stock it feels smoother than the Tangerine in my opinion. After that follows the Durock POM with its UHM WP stem, then the Box Ink Blacks with its new stem and housing design, and very close to that is the TTC Gold Pink. What's interesting is that the NK Creams are pretty scratchy even lubed, but if you do use them raw for a while to break them in, they do become substantially smoother, almost catching up to the TTC and the Box Ink Black, so not bad at all. Next up is the sound. This is looking at pretty much the sound volume. As you can hear, the TTC Gold Pink is the loudest of these all, besting even the long pole NK Creams and the Durock POM. They're just really loud. Then comes the Tangerine around the mid-pack area, followed by the CJs, with the Box Ink being the more subdued sound of the bunch. Now we look at the sound pitch. As loud as it is, the TTC Gold Pink is also pretty high pitched. Next up in pitch is the Tangerine, which I'm sure is no surprise to anybody. Tangies are typically high pitched. NK Creams tend to be on the clacky side as well, right around the middle here in this comparison. The Durock POM and the CJ has a similar pitch I feel, but I do give the deeper rating to the CJ. It's hard to tell in the single spamming, but if you listen to the double spam, CJ does exhibit a lower tone. Finally, as to no one's surprise, the Box Ink Black is the lowest pitch of this group. And last, the only objective criteria of this evaluation, the cost. If you take a look, there was a price increase on the Box Ink and it's now about 85 cents a piece, so it's quite expensive. Next step down is the Durock POM at around 70 cents a piece, and then a cluster of 3 switches, the CJ, the NK Cream, and the Tangerines are around 65 cents. Finally, the cheapest switch of this group is actually the TTC Gold Pink at an odd 49 cents a pop. I hope this evaluation helps to put everything into a single page and in a visual perspective, and it helps you. So before I close this out with a full typing test, I wanted to give my final thoughts and why I deem this new CJ Switch my favorite new linear of the year, and why I actually prefer it over the Ink series. First of all, it's a cheaper Switch by 20 cents, so when you're buying hundreds at a time, that makes a big difference. Next, the housing on the CJ is just perfect. The upper and lower tolerance is one of the tightest I have seen, and the stem wobble actually matches the venerable Tangies. The CJ is probably the smoothest switch out there right now, besting the once king Tangerine and far surpassing both the Box Ink as well as the Ink V2s. Sound is very smooth, and although it's not as deep as the Ink Black, definitely has more of it because, the POM housing. You can essentially call the CJs a deeper sounding Tangie or a smoother and tighter and louder Ink Black. As usual, if you liked the video, please like and subscribe and I'll have more content for you in the future. Now, I leave you with the final, full typing test. Thanks. Enjoy.
Goodbye.